We will have an introduction. We will look at the software and the hardware of our Proficore. We are going to look at the license systems, how does it work, the network overview and the conditions, message recording, electrical measurements, some reporting and Profi Captain. So actually all options in Profitrace, we will show you how it works, what you can do with it, and so on. Sorry, one moment. Okay. So the introduction. What is Profibus? Well, we almost always talk about Profibus DP. Your Proficore, most of the Proficores are made for Profibus DP, but if you have a PA probe, then you can also use Proficore on Profibus PA. PA is made for the process automation. That's a totally different way of sending the data communication. That's RS485 IS or MBPS IS. Profibus DP is RS485 or fiber optics. And nowadays we have Profinet and Ethernet based communication. But this training we are talking about Profibus DP, and of course we can go on to ASI, and there just need to be a converter in between. We can also measure ASI. So actually now this training is for Profibus DP. But in this Profibus network we can have instrument or I/O failures. You expect a temperature of a device, but this temperature is not correct, something like that. Or we can have wire breaks, short circuits, reflections on our Profibus, faults, connection faults, everything really on the connectors, on the cable, it can happen on Profibus. Then we can have programming faults, and we can have device problems. So my device is broken, is removed, the cable is gone, and so on. And we can have faulty addresses. But in case you have one of these problems, we must know how to find out where this problem is coming from and how we can find these problems. Well, I've been working for Procentec for 15 years now, and I do troubleshooting. I've been all over the world to do troubleshooting, and we have created a fault top 5. What is the most common faults we saw on Profibus? So on number 5, we have damaged or not certified interfaces. If you have a device and the manufacturer decided not to certify their device, it can be that there is a problem in this device. We have tested a lot of devices, and most of the device we found some problems in. So if you create a Profibus network, always use certified devices. Then on number 4, we have configuration faults. For example, my programmer programmed that my device has address number 10, but in the real situation, the device is number 12. Then we have cabling rules. The higher the speed, the less cable you may use, the less cable you may connect. For example, if you use 1.5 megabits, which almost everybody is using, because this is standard, then you may connect 200 meters of Profibus cable per segment. But nobody knows anything about this rule. Stop lines is really difficult to use stop lines. Then we have power lines, and power lines means that the power lines are very close by to our Profibus cable. If you have power lines very close by to your Profibus cable, there will be electrical interference, so EMC problems. And this EMC will influence your Profibus signal. And then on number 1, we have terminations. And this terminations is very easy, but almost nobody knows how it really goes. So actually there are 4 of those problems which are really something for the installers. The installer, it's really let's say electrical. It's not protocol, it's electrical. So we must use products to find out what kind of problems there is and how we can find these problems and fix these problems. Most of the times the devices there's red LEDs on there. And if you have a Profibus line, it could be that the devices are blinking with red LEDs. But most of the times, the real problem is on the other side of my Profibus cable. So actually on these red LEDs, it's nice to see that your Profibus device has a fault, but I believe your PLC will also show you that you have a problem. So we need to know, where is my problem? So if you look at the devices, if you look at the electrical signals of these devices, you see that the signal of this device looks like this. Signal of this device is a little bit worse. And now it's really bad. And that's why we have problems. Okay, so how does my Profitrace looks like? My Profitrace is hardware and software. The hardware is called Proficore Ultra. It's called Ultra because before the older days we had a Proficore 1. So now we created a new one, and in this new one we have built in the oscilloscope functionality. So the hardware, you always need the hardware to do measurements on your Profibus. And this hardware is using Profitrace, and Profitrace will show you the information coming out of the Proficore. So how does it look like? Well, I have a Profibus connector. That's a DB9 connector. You see it over here. We have a supported power. So we have an extra power connector on our Proficore. We have a USB connector, which we normally use. And we have an expansion connector. That's that RG for a 45 connector. Looks like an Ethernet connector, but it's not. So don't use it for Ethernet because it will not work. Yeah, this was also coming from the older days, because in the older days we didn't have the oscilloscope built in, and then we could send out a trigger signal by this RG45 connector. So it looks like this. We have an isolated RS485 DP interface. We have a high-speed oscilloscope, an FPGA where all some kind of information is in. We have some memory, this expansion connector, and the USB technology. Okay, so in the older days we had this PCMCA card. Nowadays we have this Siemens laptops. Most of them are using them. But in the older days we had this PCMCA card, and we created our Proficore because you needed to connect this PCMCA card by a long stop line. This Profibus line is a long stop line. So that's why we have created our Proficore, to create a short stop line and go by USB to our laptop. Well, it depends a little bit on how many power, but your USB cable may be 5 meters. So now I can keep my laptop 5 meters from my installation to see what's happening. And I create a short stop line that will not influence my Profibus. It will influence my Profibus a little bit, but the last, at least we know, okay, we did everything that not to create a stop line. So we can use this USB connection with all kind of PC platforms. You can use it with Linux, with Windows. You can use it with everything. And it's a very small and robust design. But to connect our Proficore, we always need to have a point of connection. In this case, we are looking at a PLC. We are not able to connect our Proficore. So we are not able to do measurements on this Ethernet, on this Profibus network. If we want to do measurements right now, we need to remove this connector and put our Proficore in between. But if you remove a device, your Profibus installation will go down. So we always must take care of a connection in our installation. That's called a PG connector, piggyback connector. If we want to use Profibus PA, we can just add a PA probe. So we need our standard Profi core, but we can add a PA probe to that, and this PA probe will take care of this Manchester bus power communication. It's a very small design. Okay, so if you have Profitrace, you see, if you open Profitrace, you see multiple tabs in your program. And all these tabs have a different license. So if you buy Profitrace, that's what we call Profitrace, you will always have the license of Profitrace. But you don't have to buy it. You can also buy only Scopeware. Or you can only buy bar graph, or only topology, or only ProfiCaptain. So you can make your own package um, for what you need and where you want to use it for. Well, normally you always use Profitrace because Profitrace is the main program. Scopeware is very good to use because Scopeware can show you the electrical signals. And we just showed you the fault top 5, and with Scopeware you can find these problems. Then you can have the bar graph. Well, if you buy Scopeware, you always also have the bar graph. With the bar graph, you can see the amplitudes, but we will explain you how it looks like. Then we can have the topology to create the topology of your network, and we can have ProfiCaptain to do master functionality. Every Profi core has its own serial number, and this serial number belongs to a license file. And this license file you can download from our Procentec website. If you use Profitrace, your program can do this for you, but of course you need to have an internet connection to download this license file. So if you want to download your license file, you always need to have your serial number. But you can copy this license file to every computer you have in your company. So everybody can use this license file on his laptop or on his PC. But of course you need to have the hardware to do measurements. Well, so you can also put it on a license server. But in your blue carrying case, if you bought a toolkit, you have a blue carrying case, there's a USB stick in there, so you can also copy this license file to this USB stick. You can copy it wherever you want. But again, you need to have the hardware, the Profi core, to do measurements. So if you want to start Profitrace for the first time, you must download the license file. I would recommend to start your Profitrace with an internet connection for the first time, because then your program will show you a pop-up like that, and on this pop-up there is a download button. That's the top button over there, and this will download the license file automatically. It will copy it to your PC, and from your PC you can copy it wherever you want. Okay. So there are 3 ways to see the condition of your network. The most easiest way to see the condition, and that's what I also use if I do troubleshooting, I look at the traffic light, the network conditioning indicator. The traffic light will just show you green is okay, orange you need to pay attention in your installation, and red is just not good. There's something wrong on your installation. Again, I always use the traffic light to see how the networks looks like, how the signals, how the Profibus looks like. But you can also use the live list, because in the live list you can see what are the devices which are online. Do I have different background colors? Do I have different names? Do I have not a background color at all? So the live list is also a way of doing easy troubleshooting. And we have statistics, and the statistics will show you all kind of Profibus problems which you can have in a Profibus. Then we have the message recording. We will show you, we will demonstrate you all where to find it, but then we have the message recording, and with the message recording you can see all messages going over the Profibus. Everything with the master sent and the slaves are answering, you can see with the message recording of Profitrace. We can set up a search function, we can set up a trigger, we can set up a trigger for all the messages which are already recorded. We can choose whatever we want. And we can see the data which are going over the Profibus, for example, temperature. Then the electrical measurements. With the scope where we can see the real RS485 signals of our devices. And with the bar graph, we can see the amplitudes of these devices. So with the scope where we can find out, okay, do we have good square block pulses on our Profibus, or do we have reflections or problems? And on the end of our measurements, we can create a report with an overview of our network, the topology, with our electrical signals, with our measurements, with our live list. Everything will be in our report. Okay. And we have also Profi-Captain, and Profi-Captain is the master functionality of Profitrace. And with the master functionality, we can set up our device and test it very easy on our desk. One moment. Okay, you're back again. There was a short question. So with Profi-Captain, we can test, we can set up our device, we can see if the temperature is sending over the Profibus. We can change the device address. For example, if you have PA devices, there's always a software set address in this device, and we can change it very easy with Profi-Captain on our desk. We can see all kind of data going on. We can set up outputs. We can change everything. It's just a test or evaluation master. Okay, so that was all I wanted to tell about Profitrace, but now I want to give you a demo how we can see everything on Profitrace. So let's see. Let's start up Profitrace. I have a training kit in front of me, and in this training kit there is a PLC connected with some devices, and these devices are online. But now I have to set up Profitrace. I started it up. There are a couple of different Profitrace programs. If I go to my Profitrace folder, it's somewhere over here. I see I have Profitrace. I've got an older version, as I can see right now, but also I have a Profitrace with a version. I have a Profitrace for Combrix, and I have a Profitrace Wizard mode. For this training, I want you to start up the Profitrace, just the standard version, if you are clicking with me. Just the standard version. Profitrace version 2.9.67. The newest version is 7, but I didn't install it yet. Okay. And now I need to create a connection between my laptop and my Proficore. I already connected my Proficore by USB, but I need to create this connection. Sometimes you can have an error in your program, and that's nowadays that is because of the newer laptops. These newer laptops cannot give enough power to power up the Proficore. So what you have to do, if you have an error on your Profitrace by initializing it, then you must connect the extra mini USB on the other side of your laptop, because then you are separated. That's a different USB connection on the other side of your laptop. So if you have an error message in your Profitrace, please connect the mini USB to give the Proficore extra power. So what I did right now, I clicked on init Proficore over there, and my Proficore was initializing. If your license file is not installed yet, then you should have a pop-up like this, like that. Over here you can see what kind of Proficore is connected. Yeah, so you can see the serial number, and now I can choose, do I want to download it automatically? That's the top button, the top one. Do I want to go to the Procentec website? Do I want to install a trial license? I have my license, or do I want to install a license somewhere on my computer? So it will just give you a Windows pop-up that you can select the license file by yourself. Or do I want to see what kind of licenses are installed already? Okay, well, I will just click on download and it says yes, license installed correctly. Okay, close. So now I see in my Profitrace, the first screen I see is always the live list. You can set it up whatever you want, but standard, the first screen you will see is the live list. I'm talking about Profitrace right now, the tab Profitrace. I will explain you Profitrace first. And in Profitrace, we have the tab live list. And in my live list, I see a red number, that's my PLC. I see blue numbers, that are my slaves. And I see green backgrounds. That means these slaves are in data exchange. So these slaves are sending data to the PLC. Sometimes you can have red and blue numbers. Those are PLCs which can work as a slave and a master. Most of the times that are those HMI panels. So if something is wrong on my Profibus, the color of my live list will change. Let's see. There it goes. Now I've got a yellow background, and a yellow background means this device was there, but is not there anymore. If you want to know the color settings of your Profitrace, you can just go to the settings, the preferences, and you can see the live list color settings over there. So that yellow means lost communication. The device was there, but it lost his communication. Okay. One moment. There was a really good question. We have a lot of times we have this question. There is a termination on your tab connector, and the question was, do you want does the termination need to be on or off? Well, normally when you just use Proficore, it should always be off. The reason we keep this termination in is that you can use it to see where your device is. You can see the distance to your device if you switch on this termination. But you really need to know what you are doing, because if you switch on this termination, the amplitude of your signal gets lower and your installation can go down. So if you don't know exactly what this means, just don't use this termination. Always keep it off. Okay, so live list. We have a yellow background right now. And if I switch on my device again, I see my device is coming up with this ident number. And this ident number belongs to this device. Okay. So let's see, what can we see more in my live list? So if you have an address which is not configured yet, we can see it on our live list. Let's see, let's change an address. Look, now I've got the number 36. This address is number 36, and I see that my 33 is gone. So this device is not configured, it's not in data exchange, it will not send data to our PLC, but it is on my Profibus. Let's switch it back. Okay. There it is again. Okay, to refresh my program, I can select my device and I can set reset selected station. There it goes. I can select this device. I can do it with all devices I have some information. Or I can go to File, New, Clear all current information. Then my program is totally refreshing. Okay, so this is the live list. Everything which is on your Profibus, you can see it in the live list. So if you don't have a green background, this device is not in data exchange. It will not send data to your device. We have different colors. Red is parameter fault, purple is configuration fault, but you can see it in the settings, and you can find out in the help file what those messages means. Okay. So that's the live list. Let's go to the messages. It's the next step in our Profitrace program. If I start my message recording over there, I can see all the messages going over my Profibus. So I can see that number 2, my PLC, sent the message to number 13, and number 13 is giving me an answer. 23, answer. 33, answer. 43, 53, answer. Then my PLC did everything in a cycle. It will search for a new address. It will give the token away, and then it starts over again. Cyclic data communication. So now we always know after how many milliseconds we have new data. Okay, so all the messages going over the Profibus, it's in this list. But you see this red line, of this blue line going over there. This blue memory buffer line is this. And that means that my buffer of my Profi core is getting full. I told you there's a little bit of RAM in our Profi core, and this is my memory of the Profi core. And it's getting full. But Profitrace is made for troubleshooting. So data exchange is not important for me because I just want to know what the problem is on my Profibus. So I want to set up a trigger. I can go to setup record trigger. I can enable it, and I can select the messages I want to trigger on. For example, I want to trigger on an error on Profibus, or I want to trigger on a set parameter. Oh, there's my message. That was the blue line. So there's a message which is telling me, okay, the buffer is full. So, or I want to trigger on set parameters, or I want to trigger on a repeated message. Okay, I can select retrigger. So that means if I have this problem, I want you to trigger again. I can tell my program, okay, if you see this problem, I want to see at least 200 messages before this trigger point. And I want to see at least 200 messages after this trigger point. Okay, if I start message recording right now, I don't see any messages in my program because my program is waiting for one of these messages, for an error, for a repeat, or for a set parameters. So if I switch off a device, there should be an error on my program. There it is. So 200 messages before, 200 messages after, so it should be somewhere like 770. There it goes, 770. There's my repeat message. So I see that my master number 2 sent the message to number 33, but 33 was not able to send me an answer, so the master will try again, try again, try again, try again, try again. Then he gives up and goes on with the next device. One moment. Yes. Okay. So you see that we have problems on our Profibus right now. And my program, my buffer, you see it over here, my buffer will not get full. This way I can leave my Proficore in my installation for weeks. Of course, you must know what Windows is going to do, but I can leave my Proficore in my installation for weeks and my buffer will not get full. Okay. Then we can set up a search function, because sometimes you can have so many messages in your in your messages, so that you cannot find the real problem. So we can set up a search function over there. Sorry, I will go back over there. And I see the same screen as I saw before with my trigger, and I can trigger on repeat messages or error illegal or set parameters again. Okay. And then I can click search down and my program will go to one of these selected messages. There it goes. Okay, then we have a difference between a record filter and a view filter. The record filter means I want to record the messages, and the view filter means I already recorded the messages and now I want to view a couple of those messages out of there. Well, if I set up a view filter, then my program will jump to this tab, messages with view filter applied. The reason I'm using this normally is if I go to my live list, go back to my live list, and I click on one of the device I want to see, my program will jump to this messages with view filter applied. And now I only see messages of the device I have selected. And you see all the repeats, all the problems of this device in my messages right now. Okay, but you can also select messages by yourself. You see now I have selected number 33. My program will change it automatically. But if you also want to see 43, I can select it, and also number 43 is inside, is there. Okay. So the set view filter means the messages are already recorded and I want to filter out some messages. And the set record filter, my program will record these messages. So if you set up your record filter that you don't want to see repeat messages, then your program will not record it. Okay. So I will always prefer to just set up a trigger, because then it will record all the messages on Profibus, but it will wait for the problem. Then we have the station statistics view. And this is a summary of all the Profibus problems or information going on Profibus. So sync means that the master wanted to send information, send messages to the device, but the device was not able to send an answer. So that means sync. So this device missed 1375 messages, cycles. And we can set up my statistics for example, repeats. So how many repeats did the master send to this device? And we can set up like how many losts of this device did we have. So we had one lost and also one lost of this device. We can have the illegal responses. Well, no illegals on this Profibus. We can see the data exchange interval. This is the cycle time of your Profibus. This is important for the programmers because they need to know when my Profibus sent new data to my PLC. We can see the slowest cycle time on this Profibus. Well, this device was having problems, so the cycle time was very slow one time. We can see the data, inputs and outputs of the devices. All kind of important information is in here. So this is a summary of everything going over Profibus. Okay, the last step of Profitrace. Let's see, data inspection. If you have devices on your Profibus, for example, a valve or a temperature measurement, and your valve sent that it's open, but in the real situation it's closed, then the data is wrong. And it could be it's going wrong over Profibus, but it could also be that's going wrong in your CPU program. So if you want to see if this data goes over Profibus, you can create a data inspection point that you can measure the data of a device. I've got a I/O device in front of me. That's a Wago or a Combrix, doesn't matter. And there are LEDs going on and off. So let's see if I can see this outputs. My Wago has address number. Let me see. I will switch it off for a moment to see what address it is. Normally it should be in schematics, but it's address number 13. So if I go back to my data inspection, I can add an entry. My address is number 13. I think I want to look at offset number 0. That means that I'm going to look at the output byte number 0 of this device. If you configure a device, you are configuring it as one big data block. But this one big data block can mean different values. Yeah, so the offset means I'm going to look at the first byte of data, of output data of this device. Okay, I think it's an unsigned 8, but I can also select floating point values. What do you have more? Floating point swapped or analog input or outputs, everything you want. I want to see it as a decimal and I want to see the outputs. Okay, let's see. There's my counter. You see on the data now that this counter is, the PLC is sending this counter to this device. And that's what I also see on my device because the LEDs are going on and off all the time. Yeah, so this way you can see if the temperature of your device is sent over Profibus or not. Okay, sorry, there was a question. So okay, so this is basically everything about Proficore. If you have a different baud rate on your Proficore can detect it automatically. But sometimes if your signals are so bad, your Proficore is not able to detect the baud rate, and then you can set it manually. You can change the baud rate over here. Let's do it. Let's see, 500. Set baud rate. Then my Profitrace will start measuring on this speed. So if I go to my live list right now, I don't see anything at all. I don't see a PLC. Well, I see an address, but yellow means it was there, but it's not there anymore. So if I refresh my program right now, file, new, clear all keyed information, everything is gone. Because my Profitrace is reading information on 500 kilobits, but the real transmission speed is 1.5. So if I click on auto detect baud rate right now, my Profitrace will check the baud rate again. There it is, 1.5, and I see my PLC and my slaves again. Okay. So let's go on. Let's go to the overview. The next step of my program is called overview. An overview is this traffic light, and in this traffic light is all kind of important information. In this case, I see a risk margin OK of 99. That means that the electrical signal of my Profibus is OK. When it's 100%, it's really the best signal we have ever seen. But normally it will always be 99. It's just programmed. And I can see, okay, how long am I measuring? Well, I'm measuring now for 1 minute because I refreshed my program. It's only for 1 minute. But measurement started at 9:46. So yeah, that's correct. 1 minute. I've got one master. My transmission speed is 1.5. I've got 5 slaves. Input. Those slaves are all in data exchange. I've got 16 inputs. Sorry, 11 inputs and 5 outputs. My cycle time is let's say 2 milliseconds. And the fastest output change of the device is 81 milliseconds. I don't have any retries. I don't have any station loss, illegals, or syncs. Yeah, so my traffic light is green because everything is working fine. So let's make a problem again. Let's see. I will switch off the device again. And now you see that the traffic light becomes red because we have problems on our Profibus. What happened? Station lost on address 33 and station lost on address 53. And we had repeats, we have syncs. So all kind of problems was going over our Profibus. So this is an easy way of to check your Profibus, is it correct or not? Just look at the traffic light. So we can reset this traffic light. What do I want to reset? Well, I reset everything. Okay, now it's green again. Okay, let's go to the next tab, Scopeware. In Scopeware, you can see the electrical signals of Profibus. This is the most important part of the program if you want to do troubleshooting. Because as I already told you, 4 of the 5 fault top 5s is electrical problems. Now you see my signal is going through my screen all the time. I don't know where I'm looking at. So what can I do? I can double click on a address in the live list on the bottom of my screen, and my program will trigger on this message. Well, I don't know if somebody is also using Profitrace at the moment, but I've changed the background to white because I need to print a lot of signals, and I don't want the customers to print them complete black cartridge empty. So I change my background. I can go to settings, preferences, and I can go to scope where, let's see, over here, scope where topology cable measurements, and I can change my background to another color. Okay, so my program is triggered on address number 2 at the moment, but I can change to another address just by clicking on the address on the bottom of my screen, and my program will change it automatically. So now I'm looking at an address at the signal of number 13. Over here in the middle of my screen, that's very small, but it's a white small arrow. There's the trigger point. So this is the point where the trigger start. And I can drag my screen just by holding it with my left bottom of my mouse, and I can drag my screen wherever I want. And you see that the trigger point is also going to a different point. If your trigger point is lost, just click on the right with the right button of your mouse on the screen and set center on trigger, and your trigger point will be in the middle of your screen again. If I want to go to the next device on my Profibus, I can also click on this plus, and this plus will jump to the next available address of my Profibus. You see it over here. Now it's 23. If I click on the plus again, 33, 43, 53, and go back to number 2. So this is an easy way of going through all your signals. So what can I change in my scopeware? Now I see the AB differential signal. This is the real RS485 signal, but I can also see the A and the B line separately. So the B line is the red one, the A line is the green one, and those signals are inverted from each other. I always keep it as this because then you can see all problems I want to see. I can change my amplitude from 1 volt to, for example, 2 volts. I don't know why, because your Profibus signal is almost always around 5 volts. You can have devices which are higher. You can also have devices which are lower, but it is always around the 5 volts. It may not go lower. Well, we have set a minimum value of 2.5 volts as a minimum. So me personally, I don't change this AB differential scale voltage, but you can do it. This is something I do change. This is the time scale, and with this time scale I can zoom in into my signal. So if I click on the arrow up, I see that I'm zooming out of my signal, and I can see all the Profibus messages going over this Profibus. If I zoom in, I can have a closer look at my signal. How does my signal looks like? Okay. Then I can select the message I want to trigger on. Well, I just want to see all the messages. I've never touched this. So, but you can do it if you want. I already explained the address. I can change my trigger to message, free running, or framing parity error. So if I click on framing parity error, my scopeware is waiting for a framing parity error right now. And if one is on my Profibus, it will just show you the signal of this error. But I will go to messages, click on an address again, and there are my messages again. I can set the trigger mode. Where do I want my program to trigger? Do I want to trigger it on the response of the message, on the request of the message, or the start of response of the message? I never touched it, so leave it like it is. I can freeze my image. that I know, okay, this is the signal I want to look at. Over there. I can set cursors. I will freeze it again. I can set cursors where I can measure time and amplitude with. So now I see some dotted lines in my screen, and I can drag these lines wherever I want. So if I drag these lines like that, I can see that this bit has a time of, let's see, over here, 1.33 microseconds. But if I look at the smallest bit of my Profibus, I believe it's this one, I can see that my Profibus speed is 1.5 megahertz. So 1.5 megabits per second. And I can change this line, this horizontal line. I can set it over there, and I can set it over there, and my program will measure the amplitude of the signal. So the amplitude of this signal is around 6 volts. I can activate a bit marker, and this bit marker means this should be the time where my bit is sent. So as you can see right now, this bit is 2 times a 1. This bit are 3 zeros. So if you see on the messages, you can see it that these are really zeros on your Profibus. Then I've got one really important thing of this program. It's a free. If you set your trigger point to free running, you can see that your signal. Sorry, I need to unfreeze it. Your signal goes through your screen, but now I can set up a level trigger, and this level trigger is like a standard oscilloscope. When something goes through this line, then my program will trigger on this message. So if I set this line a little bit higher than my signal, like that, there's no signal showing on your screen. With this level trigger, it's easy to measure EMC problems. Okay, well, I will double click on the address again. Okay. Well, it's 10 o'clock. Let's go for a short coffee break. I think Alon has a small question for you. Let's go for a small coffee break. We will go on in 10 minutes, so 9:10.